Hi, welcome to Storytime and Crafternoon. I'm Karen Manus, Director of Children's Ministries at Sunrise United Methodist Church. This week we are going to be reading on Noah's Ark, written and illustrated by Jan Brett. Grandpa Noah says that the rains are coming. Soon the land will be covered with water. Grandpa Noah is building an ark for our family and the animals to live on until it stops raining. The ark is ready. The animals go in 2 by 2. Big animals thump and bump onto the ark. Middle-sized animals clip-clop by. Small animals squeeze in. Flying creatures perch on beams above. Swimming animals splish-splash below. It rains and it rains. Only the tops of mountains poke up above the water. It is crowded inside the ark. The animals push and shove each other. The ark rocks back and forth like a giant cradle. The animals fall asleep, all jumbled in together. Everyone is asleep except for me. I tiptoe around and untangle them. It rains and rains and rains for 40 days and 40 nights. One morning, I wake up. I don't hear the rain. I look out. The sun is shining. I run and wake up Grandpa Noah. He sends my dove off to look for land. She returns with a fresh green leaf from a new tree. Grandpa Noah steers the ark to land. The animals wake up and look out. 2 by 2, the animals look for new homes. East, west, north, and south they go. Some of the animals stay with us. Grandpa plants a tiny seed. Soon we will all be settled into this new place. So within your worship kit, you should have a smaller bag that has all of these different things in it. And I thought it would be really fun to learn about how the story of Noah and the ark is all about God keeping his promises. But in order for Noah and his family to see how God kept his promises, they had to be really, really patient. And so hopefully as we make some different scenes that tell us a little bit about the story, that will help us see just how patient they were. So the first thing you're going to notice is this big blue square that you have. And what we're going to do is we're going to imagine that we have Noah's Ark here, the big ship that he built for his family and himself and the animals to go on. And they get inside this ark and they have to wait 7 days before anything happens. And so it would be really tempting after a few days to leave the ark and say, hey, it's probably not going to rain, and go on about their lives. But they decided to keep waiting, and they knew that God told them that rain was coming and the ark was the best way to stay safe. And rain certainly did come. So one thing that you can do is you can put your ark on this bit of water here. So we've got another blue piece, and this represents all the water that was coming down on the ark. And of course, Noah and his family are safe because they're sealed inside of this ark. And you'll also notice that we have this blue string here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take this and we don't have to wrap it very tightly, but we're just going to loosely wrap it. And this represents all the rain that Noah and his family must have been hearing. It must have just been roaring down lots and lots of rain. So we're going to wrap this around, and it looks like all of those raindrops coming down on Noah and his family in this ark. So we have something that looks a bit like this. So it rains and it rains and it rains. And of course, here we have the ark sort of bouncing around, and Noah's family's waiting inside this ark. It's 40 days and 40 nights of the heaviest rains that the earth has ever seen. And just like we learned about in the book we just read, we know that it does stop raining. And so we can take off this cord that we have because we know that it does stop raining. But there's still tons and tons of water everywhere because it's been raining for 40 days and 40 nights. And also springs that were under the ground were also swelling up, and everything was covered with water for as far as the eye could see. And eventually that water does start going down. In fact, it takes 150 days of more waiting that Noah and his family have to do. And eventually the waters start going down, and they land on this mountain here. And so, as you can imagine, though, everything has been washed away. There aren't any trees. There's no sort of life, and everything's kind of barren. So Noah and his family are on this mountain, but there's a lot of water still, and everything is still kind of dead, and there hasn't been new life to spring up quite yet. So they're on this mountain, and they have to keep waiting. And they wait another 178 days. That's a long time to wait. And they keep wondering, are the waters going down? Is it going to be safe to leave the boat? And so what they do is they send out a raven, and that doesn't just keep sort of flying around. Then they send out a dove, and the same thing happens. And then they wait some more, and they send the dove out again. And so here we have a little dove that you could add to your scene. And something really special happens. This dove brings back a little leaf here, an olive leaf. And they know that because there's this olive leaf here, let's go ahead and add behind here, that there must be some green land, there's some new plants that are cropping up, and it's getting to be safer, and it's getting to be the time closer to when they can leave their boat. So you can make a little scene like this if you wanted to. And so here we have Noah's boat. It's landed on this mountain, but there's also some other mountains that are visible and some plants that are showing. And what I'd like you to do, you may have to take your boat and your dove off, an olive branch. And I like how in the story it talks about how everything was bright and the sun was shining, and it must have been so hopeful after being inside that boat and hearing all of that, all the roaring sounds of the water and the rain. So what you can do, and this represents this yellow string that you have here, the bright sunlight. And actually I'm just going to take these off, and we can all just slide that back on there. But we can use this, and if you start from one point and just kind of keep working your way as you wrap it, it will start to look a little bit like, let me get this here, it will start to look a little bit like the beams, like beams of sunlight. And so you're just going to take this and just keep wrapping it. And that's what I love about that story, is there's this child, and you can of course imagine what it must have been like to be on that ark. There's this child waiting, and of course taking care of the animals, but there's lots of waiting and hoping, and they had to stay true in their faith to God to see the promise that God was making for them, which was an earth that was going to be brand new, and he was going to protect them and keep them safe during these floods and these heavy rains that flooded the earth. So here we have these beautiful rays of sunlight. We can kind of slide our green earth in here as well so that you can see that. We've also got beautiful clouds. Everything is becoming brand new and bright again. We've got our ark here, our dove, our little olive leaf here. The dark mountains that are barren are gone, and the waters have receded, and we've created a new scene. The next thing that you're going to notice in your kit, you're going to notice these strips of paper. And they look like this. You're also going to notice a piece of paper that looks like a cloud with a couple of slits in it. So what I'm going to want you to do is actually just lay these out, and you'll notice these are the colors of the rainbow. And they actually get smaller, and that's intentional as well. So what I'm going to want you to do is to take your pencil from your worship kit, because each worship kit has a pencil that you can use. And we're going to make a 3D rainbow here. And in the middle of your red sheet of paper, I'd like you to take just a moment to write that God always keeps his promises. And that is true. God always keeps his promises. And we have so many different promises throughout the Bible. And of course, one of the promises that the rainbow represents is that God promises that he will never flood the entire earth again. So here we have our saying here, God always keeps his promises. And then we're going to take just a moment to fold, and you're going to fold these in maybe not quite an inch. Fold each end of each strip about the same amount, about an inch or so, you see here. And you're going to fold each of the different colors of strips. All right, so you have folded in the ends of all of your strips of paper. You've also got this piece of paper that looks a bit like a cloud. And think of this cloud, if you will, as kind of like a base. And this is where all of these pieces of paper are going to fit. So you're going to start with your last, which is the violet or purple. And you're going to just take that. We're going to kind of work our way up to the red as their final color. And we're going to put that in those two different slits that are in your cloud. And it just makes a very tiny little arc, and the arc's actually going to get bigger and bigger as our strips get longer and longer. And then we're going to go to our next color. And you'll notice that there are 7 colors in a rainbow. There's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And that number 7 is really important. It's used throughout the Bible. We know that God created the earth and then rested on the 7th day, and it's used in many different other ways. So that's a very special number. And of course, we know the message of that rainbow in the story of Noah's Ark is special because it's a message of hope, and it's a promise from God. God promises that he will never flood the entire earth again. And the rainbow, every time we see a rainbow, we can remember that promise. And as we keep adding these loops, we can see that our rainbow keeps getting a little bit bigger. And we're just going to keep adding these different colors. And the loops get a little bit bigger as we keep going. All right, and there we have it. We have a 3D rainbow that should stand up, and I'm going to turn it on its side so you can see all those beautiful colors of the rainbow. So you can keep this out somewhere this week, and just remember that if there's a promise in the Bible, if God has made a promise, he always will keep that promise. The next thing that we are going to make, you'll notice that you have these different pieces of paper, and they're not actually attached. And actually, I just folded them over so that they would fit a little easier in your worship kit. And also, we're going to use these to make a book here in a second. But these aren't actually attached at the moment. And you've also got these sticky dots, which I like to use for a lot of different things. And this is what we're going to make. This is actually stuck together, so you can actually handle it and it stays in place. But as you probably noticed, this looks a lot like a rainbow, and that's exactly what it is. And we have 7 different colors of the rainbow. We have 7 different promises, and there are many other promises in the Bible as well. And I have chosen to write down just where we find these promises. These are also on the yellow sheet of paper that's included in your worship kit. But I've included just some of these promises, and you can read these on your worship kit. You could also look these up in your Bible. But I have these promises that are on the inside of each color. So as you flip through your book, you can read about the promises that God has made and kept. And there's promises all throughout this book. And it's secured on the back, but it's so that you can flip through it on the front. And of course, when all of the promises are folded down, it represents the rainbow, which is, of course, a symbol of God's promises. So what you're going to do is you're going to get these kind of lined up the way that you want them to get lined up. So the colors are kind of evenly spaced. And then you're going to take your sticky dots, and you can work on either side because both sides are exactly the same. What you're going to do is you're going to take one of these sticky dots, and you're just simply going to, just on one side, because we want the other side to be able to open up, you're just going to push that sticky dot on there, pull it back, and sometimes you kind of have to hold an edge of that sticky dot down. And then you're going to press it down, and then it's sticking to that next piece, so those stay together. And then you're going to do the same thing as you continue through the different colors. You're going to get another sticky dot, stick that on one of your colors, press that down really well, and now we have these 3 stuck together. And of course, we're going to go through all the different colors of the rainbow and just keep sticking those sticky dots on there. I won't go through all of the colors because I think you get the idea. But once we have all of these, we've gone through all the colors, and we end up with the back of the orange sticking to the front of this red here, you will have a little book, and you can flip it over, and this side will open up, whereas this side will stay secure. And I'd like you to take, once you do have it put together, to take just a moment and go through and write these different promises that God has made on the inside of your rainbow. Or if you wanted to, I suppose you could write it on the front and kind of go around the curves of the rainbow, if you will. And then you have a little book to help you remember God's promises. We also have a worksheet that you can use your pencil to complete, and it's about how God keeps his promises. I hope you enjoyed this week's Storytime and Crafternoon just as much as I did. I can't wait to see you again next week.